Hi everyone, we're about to go live and on Instagram and start the webinar, but I'm sitting in this beautiful condo at the Onyx Project at 3300 Avenue Troy in Montreal, Quebec, apartment 907. This unit is listed for $299,900 plus GST, QST. It has never been lived in. This is beautifully staged by our expert stager. It's a one bedroom, one bathroom unit, and it has the option of a parking spot as well. It is probably one of the best investments for several reasons. It is about 5 minutes from the University of Montreal, from Brébeuf, the CEGEP, and it is one of the most accessible positions in terms of metro and the bus system. It also has a park in front of it and is in a wonderful multi-ethnic community in Cote-Neige. It is a type of unit that once done with will rent for anywhere between 1,800 to about 1,900 depending on whether or not you have the parking. So it is the perfect investment, as we'll talk about in the webinar, for a parent looking to buy for their kid for university. Hi everyone, thanks for joining on Instagram Live and also through our webinar platform. I welcome you all today to this short seminar that's based on helping parents of students who are going to be starting in university or CEGEP and talking about the possibility of sorry about that, real estate never stops. So as I was saying, is we're all joined in today to talk about investing in real estate for students who are relocating either from out of town or for a parent who wants to take that opportunity when their child is starting a new chapter to invest in real estate in Montreal. So there's a couple things that we look at when we decide where we're going to be doing the investing based on not only the location of where the student will be going, but the length of time that they'll be in Montreal, what you want to do with the investment prior to maybe the child arriving, buying in advance, or even the option of what you're going to do with after the fact. So all those things are something that we look at when I sit down with clients and parents, for example, from McGill, which I do a lot of relocation for first-time buyers in Quebec for parents and students, as well as I do it for professors, so I'm very used to it. I do it also for Concordia students as well in the past. So basically, the first process is sitting down and understanding what this investment's for. Is it purely for the child, for the 4 years that they're going to be at McGill or Concordia, or is it something that is going to serve that purpose at the beginning and then become a pied-à-terre for the parents, or something that the child is thinking is staying with. They're not really children, they're young adults. They're thinking of keeping for the longer period of time, maybe starting to work here, etc. Obviously, if you're studying law, medicine, something like that, your stay at McGill Concordia is much longer. So we look at the length in which you're going to have the investment and the main purpose of the investment. So in Montreal, as some of you might know, and a lot of you who are joining today via the webinar platform don't know, because you're about to embark on this for the first time as your kids are settling in and getting ready to arrive for the school year. Montreal is very small. It's very accessible for the most part in the core by public transit, and you have to decide what is important for your child. Is it going to be that your child is going to be taking on a very large workload and working as well, or just at school, and they need to be very close to school or work because they're going to be, for example, walking home alone at night, etc. Do you have a child, a young daughter, and you're worried about her security, so you'll pick the neighborhood based on that? Or do you have a real independent and they're very happy to pick a neighborhood based on their lifestyle versus, pick a neighborhood based on proximity to school? So the first thing that I do with the parents when they arrive with their kids is I encourage them to go to the big main areas that we like, and also tour around their school, understand the different areas that are accessible to them, and learn to take the metro, learn to take the bus system, and understand how that works, and also explore communities by stopping for a coffee or having a bite to eat, knowing where the bank, the hospital, the grocery store is. All those things are going to be really, really important for the student because they're going to have to learn to do it themselves and be independent. And a lot of them might not be, independent to start off with. This is their first experience of being independent. So those are things that we really look at first. Those are the most important for us as a criteria, is a location, like with any real estate investment, of course, and also just what's important to the student. The other thing that we look at based on the length that they're going to be having this property is types of ownership, type of dwelling. So first, type of dwelling. Do you have a child who's going to be able to, call a plumber, to deal with the ownership in a maybe more of a brownstone style dwelling, where they're going to be one of 3 owners, and if there's something to do, they're going to have to do it for themselves. They're going to have to make decisions, because as much as it's you who owns it and you who's going to be there for the big decisions on a day-to-day basis, you're not present in Montreal for the most part. We're talking mostly parents who are having their kids come to McGill from outside of Quebec, or even just outside of Montreal. We're sitting in this beautiful condo today that actually is for sale, and it's very close to the University of Montreal. So the parents of these students don't necessarily live very far. They could live in Sherbrooke, they could live in Quebec City, just outside of the island, where it would be too much for the child to commute, and they still want a downtown investment or a island investment, on the island of Montreal investment. So that's something else to look at. Do you want something, like I said, like this condo that's going to be turnkey, brand new, you pay condo fees so that your child doesn't even ever have to think about these things, and major decisions are done at meetings where you can attend, choose not to attend, but you have written information on it. So those are the biggest things, because most 19-year-olds aren't in a position to call a plumber or to call a roofer or any of those things that might be major. The other thing you have to look at is your child going to be having a roommate? And if so, how does that look, and what type of ownership do you have to have of this dwelling to be able to sublease a room or rent or whatever? There are parents that buy duplexes for their children, and they rent out part of it as an investment. That anytime, anywhere will always be a more secured investment and a longer term investment than buying a one door. The more doors, the more diversity, the longer and the better you can have with the property, the multi-usages you can have with it over time. So that's one of the things we look at. The other thing is obviously security. There's more security in a high rise with cameras and double fob systems, and or a doorman, if that's something that you want to go to the extreme with, than in a brownstone. In a brownstone, it's the same thing as having your front door on the street, and that to a lot of parents is a little bit scary with their young, adults. They're not ready for that. So we look at those different options. Once we pick what more they're going to go for, it dictates the area. If you are going to be in the plateau, you are going to be in a brownstone. If you're going to be in the McGill Ghetto, you're going to be in the brownstone. And those types of dwellings require a lot of upkeep. So it's going to be consistent that you're going to be constantly updating and working on them, and your child will have to be somewhat involved in those things. Whereas you might pay more, get smaller square footage in a high rise in downtown that's 5-minute walk from McGill, but you have that security, you have that peace of mind, you don't have to think about it. Your child just shows up, walks to the front door, and they have that sense of security and that sense of community that wouldn't exist. The same thing goes for Concordia. If you're going to Concordia, in and around Concordia, there are more and more, because there's a lot of new construction in that area. There's more and more high rises, less and less of the older brownstones, walk-ups, older buildings like that. So you're kind of pushed one way or another. Keep in mind, also some parents come to me and say, well, we want to be in an up-and-coming area because we want our investment to grow. That you have to balance out with the security of your child or young adult, that's living there. Is that really what you want for them? It has to be a balanced decision between what's good for your kids and what's good for you. So the last thing that I want to touch on, because we don't have very much time, is really the financing. The financing is going to be very different for non-residents. Just because your child isn't a resident doesn't mean that you are, and I suggest that the first thing we do is talk to a mortgage broker. I work with tons of them. I'm happy to refer you at any time to a mortgage broker, and they will in turn with me start the process, so we'll make it work. So all these things are just preliminary discussions that we can have to start your investment and your way of looking at things in Montreal. And I'm happy to sit down with you each individually and help you with that process. If you are at any point interested in contacting me for a one-on-one, just to get more information, please contact me at info@carlyfridman.com. Thank you and have a great afternoon.